This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho, there's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for Dave. March the 3rd is a Georgia legend for the University of Georgia Bulldogs. He actually ran for the Senate in Georgia just this past year, but lost to the Democrat. Anyway, he's a legend for the University of Georgia, winning the Heisman. He actually spent 3 years for the USFL. After it folded, he went to the NFL and played for some teams and all that. He was inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame in 1999. He even participated in the 92 Winter Games in bobsled and was co-chair on the President's Council of Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition for a couple years. He is Herschel Walker, who's now 61 years old. So Herschel Walker was raised in Georgia. You wouldn't know it, but he was overweight and had a stutter. However, sports would help him out. And anyway, there was a lot of problems and all that. Herschel Walker actually did lie about graduating from the University of Georgia, but left Georgia after his junior year to play for the USFL. So anyway, regardless of that, he was a legend in college football. In 3 seasons with Georgia, he put up 5,259 yards. His worst rushing production was his freshman year, 1,616 yards. Then he went 1,891, then 1,752. Scoring 49 touchdowns in those 3 years for Georgia. He, in fact, was the first NCAA player to play 3 years and to finish in the top 10 in rushing yards all 3 years. Jonathan Taylor would actually tie that mark. Yeah, so he had 1,600 yards. He ended up being 3rd in Heisman voting. But the funny thing about that 1980 season was that was when Georgia won the national championship, which was their first until 2022, which was their last in 42 years. So yeah, he was a Georgia legend. And then Herschel Walker signed with the New Jersey Generals of the USFL, which, wanted him. So he jumped from college to the USFL with the promise of playing football right off the bat and not needing to be drafted by an NFL team, although he could have been a legend in the NFL. Of course, the New Jersey Generals would soon be owned by Donald Trump, but there was an Oklahoma oil tycoon who owned it for a year. The Dallas Cowboys actually ended up getting Walker's NFL rights by selecting him in the 5th round of the 1985 NFL draft. He definitely would have been a top 3 pick if he stayed in college and went to the NFL straight from there. So the Cowboys signed him, and he was made to be fullback so that he could share backfield duties with the legendary Tony Dorsett, becoming the 2nd Heisman backfield tandem in NFL history, as Dorsett won the Heisman for the 76 Pitt Panthers. The 84 Saints were the first, with Earl Campbell and George Rogers. George Rogers, the running back from South Carolina, who was the 1980 Heisman winner, and Earl Campbell, who won with Texas. This move actually created tension. Dorsett's playing time was limited, and Walker's contract exceeded his. But Herschel Walker did rush for the game-winning touchdown against the Giants in the season opener, the 86 season opener, and put up an 84-yard touchdown reception and an 84-yard run for a touchdown against the Eagles in one game. Walker actually complained to Cowboys management about being moved with running back, fullback, and wide receiver. So he became the main running back for Dallas, playing in 12 games, putting up 891 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. Dorsett would play in 12 games himself, but the lack of playing time made him want to leave, so he went to Denver. Herschel became a running back, becoming a one-man offense, putting up 1,500 rushing yards and playing lots of positions and all that. So he made it to the Pro Bowl. But Dallas was not so good and all that. They were just off the firing of Tom Landry, and then, Tex Schramm sold to Jerry Jones, who hired his Double J counterpart Jimmy Johnson to be the coach. So Dallas traded Walker to Minnesota for 5 players: Jesse Solomon, linebacker, defensive back Isaiah Holt, running back Darren Nelson, linebacker David Howard, and defensive end Alex Stewart, and 6 future draft picks. So anyway, the players were actually led to potential draft picks. Minnesota would give Dallas if a player was cut. And Minnesota had to give 4 picks to Dallas. Well, Dallas used them to get Emmitt Smith, Russell Maryland, Kevin Smith, and Darren Woodson. I know there were a lot more that happened from it. But yeah, Darren Nelson was a good running back for Minnesota, but he went to Dallas and changed the running backs. Isaiah Holt, I remember because he's in my 2nd and 10 video game, PC game for the 92 Cowboys. But anyway, so the Cowboys did that. Now, rumors were circulating that Cleveland were in high demand for him too, because they lost their man Kevin Mack to a drug suspension, but it didn't happen. Everyone thought that Minnesota made the right move and supplying the Vikings with a missing piece for a Super Bowl run. However, the Cowboys would get the last laugh using those draft picks, effectively, even trading a couple of them to get better picks. So anyway, Cowboys soared and the Vikings waned. And they said it was much lopsided and all that. So anyway, the Metrodome crowd in Minnesota gave him 3 standing ovations. And the Vikings won the game over the Packers. Anyway, it didn't matter for him. So Minnesota went to the playoffs a couple times when he was there, but unfortunately he floundered. Well, the team floundered too. So after 3 years in Minnesota, Philly decided to sign Herschel Walker with the hopes that he could get a good running back. And he did run for 1,000+ yards, so that was good. He spent 3 years in Philly, but after Philly signed Ricky Watters off the Niners after winning the Super Bowl, he was done so. So the Giants gave him a 3-year deal. So he would be back in New York in a sense, back in New Jersey, because, the Giants played at Giants Stadium in New Jersey. He was a 3rd down back. He only spent 1 season, 95, and then rejoined the Cowboys as a kickoff, return specialist, and 3rd down back. He did play a few seasons, but didn't get a Super Bowl where he should have been. So anyway, in the USFL, he did pretty well. 5,562 yards in 3 seasons, 54 touchdowns. In the NFL, Dallas got him in 86. With his time in Dallas, Minnesota, Philly, the Giants, and back in Dallas, he would accrue only 8,225 rushing yards for 61 touchdowns. But he did catch 21 touchdown passes and 2 kick returns. So anyway, Walker actually has a 5th-degree black belt in Taekwondo. Walker had an MMA debut and won at Strikeforce Miami, and then he would actually defeat Scott Carson by TKO. So he's 2-0 in MMA and all that. So anyway, it was weird how Herschel Walker was signed by Strikeforce at age 47 to fight. So anyway, strange as it sounded, Herschel Walker actually was part of the U.S. Olympic bobsled team in Albertville. It was like shocking and all that. He actually was selected for the 4-man team, but then he competed in the 2-man competition alongside Brian Schimmer. So they took 7th, which is not bad, top 10. Business activities, he has a lot of chicken products, Renaissance Men Food Services, and, all this and all that. So there are a lot of issues, all that. Anyway, political theoretically, he had a U.S. Senate election chance in Georgia. Well, of course, Herschel Walker was a Texas resident, so he needed to reestablish a residency in Georgia to do so. But he ran for the Senate seat held by Democrat Raphael Warnock. There were a couple of troublesome statements. So he actually faced off in a runoff election because no candidate received a majority of the vote. Walker tried his best, but he failed. Of course, Walker tweeted a video supporting Trump's efforts to overturn the election results and all that. So anyway, he opposes abortion and all that, national security. So yeah, the problem was that Walker's primary residence is Texas, even though he was running for Georgia. Georgia seat. So he married a woman named Cindy. They divorced after 19 years of marriage in 2002, but their son Christian is actually a social media influencer doing viral for his conservative rants and all that. Walker would actually marry Julie Blanchard just past a few years ago. He does have 3 additional kids. Anyway. Yeah, so it's just not good. Having 4 kids with 4 different women and all that. Walker actually did say he has dissociative identity disorder because of his mental illness, and says he has a dozen distinct identities. Some did good, some did bad, and the others did bad. So anyway, he actually played Russian roulette once in 1991. And fortunately was diagnosed with the disorder. And, his behavior because of his identity disorder ruined his marriage. Of course. He got treatment and all that for that. So that's great that, he admitted his faults. So yeah, he went to the Pro Bowl twice in the NFL. He was the USFL MVP in 1985. In the NCAA, he won the national title with Georgia in 1980 and then won the Heisman in 82. His number 34 retired by Georgia. Why wouldn't it be? So yeah, he was close. And all that. Losing 51-48 on the election thing. But, Herschel Walker's still a great guy, Georgia Bulldogs for life. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond to do.